This is my first game that I made for an Intro to C++ course. We were given a simple OpenGL template including classes for drawing basic shapes and applying transforms. Unfortunately, I have since lost the source code, but I can still show you how it works. There is an overarching state machine which handles when the main menu, in-game, and losing screen operations are executed. On the main menu, there is a vector drawing that changes color with its rotation. I basically took the rotation and passed it into 3 offset sine functions, which then feed into the RGB values of the drawing. In-game, there is a circle that spawns at a random height along the left side of the screen. Each time the circle touches an edge, it calculates a line between its current position and the current position of the mouse. It then travels along that line until it hits another edge or the cursor. I wrote a circle collider to detect these collisions. If it hits the cursor, it is game over and the game state switches to the losing screen. As the game progresses, a second counter counts up and the circle gets larger and faster. The losing screen simply displays information, waits for a mouse click, resets some game variables, and enters back into the gameplay state. This is the game I am currently working on. It is called Sword with a question mark. The first thing I made here was the character controller that I built up from scratch. It feels really nice, and the reason for this is that I set it up to have an adjustable value that controls acceleration. This allows me to tweak the responsiveness until it feels just right. In the future, it will also be able to change dynamically, so if the character is walking on ice, for instance, they will be sliding around a bit more. The jumping is also highly polished, allowing for short and long jumps based on how long the player holds the jump button, as well as an editable amount of air jumps. So that allows for double jumps, triple jumps, based on how that variable is set in the inspector. When airborne, the player also has some horizontal control, utilizing the same system as before, but with a lower level of response. The camera utilizes dead zones to follow the character in a loose and fluid manner. Along the x-axis, it matches the x component of his velocity if he is moving outside the dead zone. Along the y, the camera steps up and down to certain increments. If the character leaves the dead zone, the camera looks at which vertical increment he is in and then moves to that increment. Currently, the sword is just instantiated on throw and then performs set behaviors based on a prefab. The prefab instantiated is determined by the current throw mode, which can be cycled. My favorite throw mode is the boomerang. When the boomerang is created, it spawns an empty game object where the character is standing, and another one some distance in front of the character. As time passes, the boomerang then follows a Bezier curve between the two objects. Once it reaches the target, it then follows a new curve between that object and the character. If the boomerang collides with the terrain at any point, rigid body physics take over. For the dialog window contents, I had to create a specialized class. Unity does not support inline images with its GUI text, so to get around this, I made a class that stores a string and 2 booleans, one for whether the string represents an image, and one for entering a new line. The dialog window will read through an array of these objects, and if the object represents an image, it will look for a GUI style with that name and create a GUI box using that style. Otherwise, the object is just used to create a GUI label. The window also keeps track of line count and creates as many pages as necessary to fit all of the content. Gamepad support is a big goal for this project. We chose the Xbox controller due to its availability and compatibility. Unity's Input Manager was used to allow both keyboard and controller input to work. One thing to note is that the GUI skin changes dynamically based on whether or not an Xbox controller is plugged in, allowing the control tip icons to change to meet the situation. Respawns are one other key feature in this game. When a level loads, a list of respawns for both the sword and the player are created. When a respawn zone is encountered, all others in the list are deactivated, and the encountered respawn is activated.